Welcome to the Global Exclusive Podcast. This is a special episode because I don't think we've had a real guest since like forever. I can't
Oh,
remember.
wow.
Yeah.
We just have
So,
feasts like cotton.
we're gonna welcome Livedili to the podcast. Say hi, Liv.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. If you don't know him, he has YouTube videos that are okay. He also has a damage spreadsheet that's also kind of okay. Um, yeah. And we're also joined by Sinzar, by the way. Say hi.
What's up, guys? I have apparently been upgraded from guest to, I guess, just member, it seems.
I think you've appeared more on this podcast than any of the past members. Like, I think we need to count the episodes that you're on, including the Tuesday Newsdays, and you'll probably have more episode appearances than any of us. So there's that.
Seems that way.
But unlike our exciting panel of members this week, Gumi threw us a shitty week of two weird units, Fina and Rain, for like the 15th time. Like, how many times do we need to get Fina and Rain in a banner, right? So
There's so many Finas and Rains. You're right. Like both of them.
yeah.
I'm sure there'll be more to come.
Oh, so excited for the future of Finas and Rains that are in our purview. But this time around, they kind of changed it up, giving Fina a buff. So who wants to talk about that buff? I know Liv was pretty livid about the buffs.
Yeah.
I'm on a fucking roll today.
I guess I can go with it. So, I mean, to start with, her baseline is basically the dark clone of Return Fina, where she does the 45 Dark Amp, the 400 stat buffs, 300 LB, trades the bow in peril for a whip in peril of the same amount, and gets some killers and some damage-related stuff instead of Fina's healing. In terms of buffs, she got the usual premium move EX3 to EX2, but it also got an addition of a 1-turn 250 Demon Killer on top of the 4-turn 160 that it previously did. And then she got a bunch of like extra damage mods, which is a bit weird because she's kind of primary support. But it's kind of usable, I guess.
Her damage, I actually calculated her damage. She does approximately similar to Frievia in Dark Visions, which is a pretty low bar. But it's pretty low because for like all her buffing, if you want to do her SLB for buffing, her modifier boost, you can't really fit like range TMR, and even if you did squeeze it in, it's only for one cast out of 4 anyway. So she just really can't compare to like the LB finishers for Magic because they're getting focus buffs. They just have higher mods anyway. Dark Fina's Magic isn't the highest. Like, it's decent, but it's not great. So yeah, for damage, she's okay.
It's at a fairly similar level, like at least on mods to Return Nicole and Sakura, isn't it? And similar sort of quad casting.
They have a little bit higher. For example, they do 2,880 X modifier. Dark Fina does 2,400, so it's about 400 mod less, and she has like a tiny bit less. Like in full whale builds, she's a little bit lower on the total magic.
Yeah, that's true. Her base magic's not super high, but she does kind of self-buff herself better than those two, and doesn't have to worry about like she can damage a bit more sort of consistently over time.
Oh, for sure. Like, for example, someone said like using her for the Belphegor trial, and for sustained damage, she's great because like Dark Rain is once per 3 turns. She's every turn, which is great.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to mention. Is Belphegor? She becomes a weirdly good option for that. It's funny because she was a good support option for it in JP, and now she'll be a very good damage option because she just has that basically dark chains every turn with a good mod.
But isn't it the case that for dark stages, there is very few options anyway? There's like Renault, Dark Rain, and now Dark Fina, and that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, for Dark...
isn't there Ibarra, kind of?
In Dark Visions, no. Clash, her Dark Visions mods is pretty low. For Clash, Clash, you aren't bringing
Clash only.
Yeah,
or Trials. I mean, there's very few actually good Dark units. I mean,
There's
now
actually also Oliveira is actually really high up there on Dark Magic with the new card.
I always forget about Oliveira. He's still too memey for me.
That's fair. That's fair. I
No,
think
but,
for most people. Oh, you go for it.
I wanted to talk about the Demon Slayer, the X+2 buff that she got. Well, buff. I personally, I don't know what you were going to say, but what I wanted to get off my chest is, and Sinzar and I talked about this prior to recording. I feel like it's a downgrade, honestly, to her, or it makes it at least clunkier to use. Because while I agree this is strictly above compared to what JP had, this buff, quote unquote, has you choosing between, do I want 250% Demon Killer increase to the party, but 0 damage for Fina on that specific turn because it's just for the actual turn you're using it, or do I forgo the 250% killer buff and just wing it with her damage? I haven't calculated which one performs better, but there's also the thing to consider: who's going to chain? Is she important for chaining or not? And I feel like it made using her worse in the grand scope of things.
Well, it's kind of interesting because basically, yeah, she now has one of two options for that kill turn, being either the stronger killer buff or her half decent chains. But on JP, she had neither of those options for the kill turn, so it's, yeah, I feel like it's still an upgrade, but you kind of can't use both of her upgrade areas at the same time in that way. That makes sense.
I actually would like to step in as devil's advocate for a moment, and I will say, this is going to be an unpopular statement for a lot of players, but if you are a player that macros, you could use her triple cast to macro a starting cast of Demon Killer, followed by 2 cast of her chain, so she's dealing half damage, 2 instead of 4, and you could still buff and chain on the kill turn. Now, that kind of timing is going to require a macro. But if you're willing to do that, you could get 2 out of 4 chains and Demon Killer on the kill turn.
Yeah,
but that is going to be
disgusting.
It's possible, but that is, I speak from experience. That kind of wonky chaining is frustrating and it will drive you insane. But there are going to be players, I promise you, in some Dark Visions, they're going to do it.
Yeah, it'll probably end up being me, and I'm going to hate it.
I'm mostly annoyed that, like every other JP element support, she doesn't have a fucking Imperil. How hard is it to put one on her?
I mean, Light Fina also didn't have an Imperil, if I remember
most
correctly.
of them do this, and it's really annoying every single time. Even Sakura's gotten put in that boat because they didn't fucking give anyone burst like they were supposed to.
But that's why
Sakura isn't premium. It's probably they hate premium units.
And
like,
the funniest thing
premium.
is the best friend to Dark Fina is Renoa, who also has no Imperil.
True.
Yeah, this is kind of getting out of hand. JP doesn't know what to do.
Thanks, JP.
The next unit is a lot more interesting. Dream will tell us all about it.
If by more you mean less, then sure. That's a true statement. Basically, Asura Rain is the next basic bitch SLB from JP. Dark Locked, the classic one-use 30% self-amp, because sure, we're using those, right? And then he basically has a combo that I think we'll see quite a bit of: a 60x racial mod on one hit, and then a 300 normal mod. And then he's got a sort of inbuilt Tyvus Spirit on his base LB, so you want to use that the turn before to buff his mods up.
His TMR, though.
The STMR, though.
His TMR, though.
They have HP on them, I guess.
Yeah, they're really good. They're like basically just a direct upgrade to Guy's STMR and just like way better for DPS units. Like I wish I kind of could have gotten some and I didn't, so I'm a little sad, but I'm sure he'll troll me off banner eventually.
I mean, Sky is gonna love his STMR in Clash. That 100% HP on top of the Stone Killer and 7.5k HP. That's gonna be chef's kiss.
Really good. It's actually even good for just tanks, assuming your tank doesn't really need more defense. It has no defense, but like it works on some tanks, not all. They do require the physical attacker tag, but a lot of tanks actually have that on top of their tanking tags. So
yeah, because their support chains are physical, usually.
Mm-hmm. Like I'm pretty sure Warrior of Light has it. I know Esther has it, etc.
It's funny because Sylvie also has the attacker.
Does she?
Tag.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, she's support attacker in Brave Shift, so that's kind of wonky. But more power to her.
Yeah, so lots of HP for her too.
Yeah. Yeah, we seem to be starting to get into the trend of JP putting just big HP values on a lot of like attacker stuff, especially, but in general, a lot of gear and stuff.
And the funny thing is, in JP, this isn't even used anywhere because JP trials are still very much binary. It's either you take no damage or you're not surviving the damage if you take it. So, like, this HP is so pointless.
That's a good point. What's really interesting about this week is that the banner format is very weird. Anyone want to touch upon that?
Semi-premium format.
Even Gumi knows that this shouldn't be a premium unit. Like,
personally, I'll be honest. I like this banner or the 26K dual lab banner. I like that part honestly because at the end of the 6th step, you get either one or one of the two. Sorry, you get one of the two guaranteed, and I think that's a cool deal.
The issue is if you're pulling for one of them and you get the other one, then most likely you're not pulling for rain. I mean, that's a pretty bad deal.
Still better than the other one that you would actually.
That's true.
I mean, it's better than the Wilk banner for sure.
Fun fact about Vilk: he's pronounced Vilk, not Wilk. So, just a thought.
All I'm hearing is milk. We'll stick with that.
For me personally, I don't like this banner format. I suppose I can get on board with like just from a raw value standpoint, it might be better because you're getting a guaranteed for I think it was it 26K for the first lap. So you are getting a guaranteed, and like rain does come with decent gear and all. Like I will admit that. But even so, just from like a player standpoint or a personal standpoint, like Shado mentioned, just the feeling of getting rain would be devastating. Yeah, it feels so bad. Like it might still be valuable, sure, but it doesn't matter if it's valuable when you just get frustrated anyway. And that's how I would personally feel if I went on this step up, and I don't like it.
And her card, like we didn't talk about her card because she's still a premium unit, so you get her card at EX3. Her card isn't even that great either. So it's a bit weird where she's a premium unit, but she doesn't have the premium value, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, pretty much. No flat stats, and the card has a passive that is literally her only, and that should have absolutely been in her kit as an EX3 skill, not on the card. So the card is pretty terrible. Like I'll say it's terrible. It really is. Like I would use any other card on a different unit. Now, obviously, for her, she has to use her own card because the skill on the card that should be in her kit is really good. It's a really good skill. I'd love to have it. And you're going to always give her that card for that reason. But the card itself is just bad.
Just quick question, Sinzar. Do you know whether if you equip her card to any other eligible unit, can that unit use that LB fill, or is it actually just her?
No, it is just for her. The ability is grayed out on everyone else. Yeah, it's such a head scratcher. Like, why was that not put on the unit itself? What is the point of putting it on the card? I don't understand.
I mean, I like the concept of the card, but if it's actually just limited to her, it's the dumbest thing I've seen, especially on a premium unit.
It's actually almost a handicap, because what if I want to give her Tulian's card and make her passive provoke or something? You know, like I might want to use a different card, and all of a sudden she's losing her LB support if you do that.
So dumb.
This is kind of crazy. JP loves the plot. It really is, though.
Yeah. Also, just like speaking of the banner format again, I just checked in game, and her premium, like her pity is 14 tickets. So I'm working out how much lapis that actually is to pity compared to like the old premium format, because I have a feeling it might be more.
Yeah, it's 52 from the 2 labs, and then it's, I believe, 2 more of the other one. That's 9K, so that's 52 plus 18. That's 70,000.
Geez, 70K instead of the usual 60 for the actual pity. But
My
you
goodness,
also get the 2 coin flips.
And
So
I guess
if you're unlucky, that could be really brutal.
I guess one thing, like saving grace, is you actually can get premium shards for her in the step up shop. They cost triple price, but for 15 tokens, you do get 50 shards, which is, I guess, better than other premiums. But if it's costing you 10,000 more raw lapis, maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward.
But you know what's really awkward? If you want those 50 shards, you have to go another 4K more.
One more step, yeah.
Oh, do you? Oh, God.
Yeah, because you only gain
14 tickets.
14 coins by the end of the pity.
Oh, I hate that. I hated those old formats where like the format stops you, where you kind of have to go one more that you don't really need because of the value, and I always didn't like that, and it was kind of nice that we haven't had that for like a while. The laps have ended on a clean step,
Yeah.
but I guess
Maybe
they're bringing it back.
If you technically did like 1 lap of the coin flip one and then 5 laps of the 9K one, you could get it for like 66K and have 15 shards, or 71K if you go the last step for the coin flip. So that's maybe a tiny bit better.
Yeah, but you're still pulling for Dark Fina, which is a bad thing. We spent way more on this than Gumi ever spent on planning to upgrade these units, or Alim ever spent designing them. But it's been a week since Cow came out, and last week we kind of skipped Cow because I don't think myself or anybody on the podcast last week did it. But this week,
like so much to talk about.
That's so true. So this week we're going to talk about Cow and Liv and Sinzar. I'm sure you guys have done it too. I'll open up saying that this is probably the best Cow ever. Like, this is probably the best Cow boss ever. I enjoyed quite a lot. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm actually glad to hear you say that, Shado. And this is no disrespect at all to Shado, but like, you don't really like go super hardcore in Clash of Wills, and I think like that's the case for the majority of the player base. And to hear that you still really enjoy the fact that this Clash is kind of tuned like more leaning towards like a hardcore style of player, with being challenging, really long fight, etc., and you still enjoying it, is actually, I think, is really cool, because I'm hoping they do more Clashes like this. Maybe not so many turns. I think it is a little bit overly bulky.
Yeah,
but as far as
one thing.
Yeah, but the complexity is, I'm great. And I've seen a lot of comments from many, many players saying they're enjoying this Clash of Wills. So I'm really happy, because I personally really love it as well.
Yeah, I think this Clash hit the sweet spot in terms of complexity. Like, there were a few bosses, like I remember Kairos. It required a very specific set of units if you didn't have it. But mind you, this is Anniversary. I have Sylvie. I have Vilk. So I'm at the part of the groups that have the tools. But at the same time, even if you have those tools, it can be difficult. Just got to watch out for certain things.
I think the AI mod is a really nice way of dividing it, because with the AI mod on, it's a very complex Clash for like those top end players. But with it off, and even if you still have like reasonably high mods elsewhere, it's a reasonably simple, doable fight, even if it is quite bulky. So I think that's where it helps that more casual side quite well as well. So yeah, I think having those two AIs, one only really being necessary for those really top end rank 1 clears, is a really good way to do it for catering to more of the player base.
Liv, you were going to say something before?
I forgot. Honestly, I gotta
Did you enjoy this Clash?
Absolutely. It's my favorite one. My prior favorite one was Kairos. So when I saw that the boss actually has a Kairos face, I was like, yeah, this is already great. And what I really, really like about this is the callbacks, the fields that they actually change the way the boss works for that specific part of the percentage HP bar. I think that mechanic should stay to some degree. I wouldn't mind at all if they got rid of HP locks in general, but give the boss more bulk instead and have us play through these phases like we did just now. I mean, yeah, the Wanderer actually made it work to just basically skip all the phases, but that's super wild territory, right? I couldn't do this. Sinzar couldn't probably do this. And for the majority of the players, meaning 99%, you have to actually deal with the mechanics. And I think that's a cooler way to design a boss than with HP bars or HP logs, sorry. Because then you're just preparing your burst for turns. Turn 5 HP log, turn 6 is preparation, turn 7 the boss is dead. That's how it usually went for the last couple of months. And this time we actually have to deal with the mechanics, and I love that.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I think we need to give kudos to Gumi for designing this boss is basically you could do it either way. As in, I only took 2 DPS and I still was able to cap the damage and beat the boss. So I took a Vilk and an Esther, and the rest of my guys were supports, which is super safe, which is like very boring, but at the same time it was possible, and I could still be rank 1 versus some people take 4 DPS and 2 supports and try to beat it quicker. And I'm glad that both playstyles worked.
It is really hard to cap with only 2 DPS though. Like that's using the 2 best ones.
Yeah,
and stuff. Usually you will need at least 3.
Yeah. That is basically just Wilk and Esther. I'm assuming Sylvie was there as well, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that is like the only way you're capping with 2 DPS is that triple combo.
But the fact that it exists, I liked it a lot. Who did you cap, Dream? Did you get rank 1?
I haven't yet because I need EX levels from Shard Dungeon, but I am hoping I will be able to cap on the last day.
Okay, so we need to talk about this. Holy shit, the EX restriction needs to go.
That is like the one thing that is still bad.
Like, it forces people into using bad units. Like, I mean, okay, to be fair, not bad units, but like units that they don't want to use. Like Runda, I don't want to use Runda, but I was kind of forced into using Runda because he was an EX3 unit that I had. So
I'm gonna be devil's advocate for a moment. And first of all, I'm going to disclaimer and say, I agree. I do not like the EX lock system. That being said, that is pretty much the entire moneymaker for global. So if we remove it, what would be the replacement? Because they do, at the end of the day, still have to drive pulls. And that is the biggest thing driving pulls on global. People are like, I got to pull for the next class unit. I got to be high enough EX level because I want to chase that rank 1. And if you remove that, especially because lots of clashes can be capped with relatively whatever DPS. This one was kind of bulky, but some of the past few, we were like overcapping by like 5 billion. So it wasn't hard to cap. It was just an EX lock. So while I don't like the EX lock because it is very restrictive, I agree with that. What would they replace it with?
Basically, damn you, capitalism.
I'd just like to add one thing to this. And I know this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but I think the EX16 requirement is good. Because what happens if you lower this to EX15? That means you can use 5-star or 7-star units, which then again implies, or that has the effect of Mastermind Xorn entering Clash of Wills. And that's bad news, because Mastermind Xorn broke Dark Visions. And 100% he is going to break Clash of Worlds. And I have a feeling Gumi doesn't want that, and for good reasons.
With the current level of like AoE killer buffs we have and amps that he can't spread and whatnot, I really don't think he would be an issue.
Really? 250% buffs of Sylvie that you can steal and spread for everybody? I don't think so.
You can still put them on whoever your best DPS is.
Yeah, it's
and like
one.
You're using an entire extra slot just for that to go from 550 total killer to 650 or even 600 if it's dual race. That's really not that big an upgrade in final damage.
But what if you have 2 units? You could just imagine you have Sylvie's Stone Demon Killer, 250 to both. That's a huge upgrade over her usual. What is it? 150?
150 AoE.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's still going from
that's still 100 percentage points.
For me, I think the biggest thing Zahn could potentially break would be the fact that he can preserve those buffs while hiding.
Yeah.
And hiding from thresholds is a really powerful tool.
Yeah, I was gonna add that if the only way that Zon can probably break Cow, in my opinion, is the hide, AoE hide mechanic, where if you do the 49% and it's HP lock, and then you hide your whole party, that could potentially just make it easy money. But this might be dumb, but what if we make it 15, but no 7-star units are allowed? Because if you make it 15, that means you can bring it up to 3 EX2 units, which is a lot more reasonable than 2.
That's a good solution now, actually.
I know
EX3s are actually really hard to chase for, like,
yeah.
except for very rarely if you're not paying.
The thing about EX2 is that in a reasonable time, you can get EX2, right? If you at least get one additional unit from the banner plus the pity, that's 250, 30 from logins, 50 from the summons, and 50 again from VIP shop. You can reasonably get EX2 within a decent amount of time. But EX3 has always been like the unicorn. Like you need 200 extra shards for that, which is just absurd to do in a reasonable amount of time, especially with the rate we're getting shard dungeons. So I still feel like there could be a better way to do this. I know that I completely understand Sinzar's point because this is Global's way of making money right now, and it's making great money. It's a cash cow. But I think there must be better ways to include more players into becoming competitive. Because for the longest time, the only reason I hated cow was because of the EX restrictions. Like I couldn't do it because like my Ling was only EX1 or my Sky was EX1. Like that's kept me out of competing.
Yeah, same for me. There was a bunch of clashes where I was like, I feel like I have the good units and the team for this, but I'm like 2-3 EX levels short, so why frickin' bother? So I just did a basic 99 clear, and I was like, is there much point in doing more? Not really.
Yeah, and it's not like Vision World where they give 10k lapis to first place. Like if that was a case, maybe I would have done it a little more. But yeah, in the past, it's just that's why cow turned me off quite a bit. Low EX levels on my GLEX units, but right now, as it stands, Vilk and Sylvia are EX2 for me, so I was able to cap it. But yeah, that was cow. I enjoyed it though, but please somehow think of a better way to monetize this other than EX level Scoomy.
Actually, I don't think we're going to be seeing that change.
Not really. But speaking of, oh yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, to kind of like veer a little bit into speculation, they are adding like the quote unquote clash bosses to Chamber of Vengeance, and I can't see a way that EX locks will come into play. So I'm assuming the Chamber of Vengeance clash bosses are going to be just take whatever you want, whatever EX levels you want. So that could be a solution. I mean, it won't fix cow itself, but it'll still give you the cow experience without having the problem of EX levels.
No, that's very true. Very true. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today, because our banners were so shite, and we have a pretty cool guest on here, is recapping anniversary. It's been a week since the anniversary stream, or 2 weeks since the anniversary stream, and a week since the Vilk and Sylvie banners. I just want to get a feel of how people feel about anniversary. Like it's the 6th year into a pretty old gacha game. So, any thoughts?
Good and bad.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest,
but they're making some simple mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. Like the gifts and all the login rewards, wonderful. They were very, very generous this anniversary. No complaints. The units, great. The Clash of Wills, great. But as far as like the day-to-day celebrations, we had literally nothing. We had like a 20-minute story event for Wilk, and then because we had the broken supersite dungeons that they took down immediately, we had our first week of anniversary, which was quite literally a dead week. I was dumping all my energy on Fortisite dungeons because we had nothing to do the entire week of anniversary. And that feels like kind of a miss for me. Like there should not be a literal dead week during your anniversary week. And it really was a totally dead week as far as events go, other than Clash.
Why are we not farming rank XP?
That caused that was the super site bug thing.
Yeah, I think their plan was that they made sure that you don't have energy intensive stuff last week so that people could farm super sites, but people could farm lapis over and over again and they can't have that, so they removed it. For me, I think I enjoyed, yeah, it was a great anniversary, but like if you think about last year and the year before that, they always have good units. Like units are never an issue. It's always like, but it was always like at the time, it was the gifts being spread out across like 3 to 6 months, and it made no sense at the time. But what I did enjoy about this anniversary is that they kind of like, okay, fine, we'll give you all the gifts in one go, or at least within a reasonable time frame instead.
It was pretty front loaded, I guess.
And
that's good. It should be.
Oh yeah, 100%, and that's what I'm saying. That wasn't the good aspect, I think. The other thing is, you're right, Sinzar, it doesn't feel like an anniversary though. Like other than the login screen, like what makes it scream anniversary right now? Because nothing really does. So there is that aspect, I think.
I think the one thing that's really missing is slots to Chocobo. That really nails the anniversary feel.
Oh, definitely.
I was looking forward to slots to Chocobo, and I was disappointed to see it's not there.
But just to like bring up an example that I'm talking about, like in previous years, we had like I think it was the 4th anniversary. They had the little story event where like the character of Hirono came on stage, and the main cast had like a little actual story thing. They had the raid against the Rainbow Hooded Man. They had the other year where we had like the raid event and the special unlock boss of we actually fought King Mog. That kind of stuff is cool. I think it's cool and interesting, and it's like celebratory. We didn't really have any of that this year. Like other than the art of the login screen being changed, you would never know it's an anniversary by just logging into the game, other than the fact that there is the background change.
I guess in the weekly 67s, but yeah.
Like I guess the Hirono one raid came back for, or the Hiroki raid came back for like the countdown, but that was pretty poorly done.
Oh my god. It did, and I literally forgot about that because it was so poorly handled and it was so forgettable. That was a misstep. They really missed the mark on that one. That should not have been the case. Yeah, but you're right. They actually did bring back. They literally did. I can't believe I forgot that. But they did bring back the Rainbow Hooded Man raid. It was just so poorly handled that I completely forgot about it.
I think the other thing is that the units, like Sylvie and Vilk, there was like a mini meltdown. I mean, Barros had a mini meltdown. Love you, Barros, but about Sylvie being so broken. But like after a week of use, I think I agree that Sylvie's pretty broken, but Vilk is a little more clunky than initially thought. Just a little more clunky, and I think that's where Esther probably edges him out. Because Esther is so brain dead. And
I think that partly came about because we didn't expect like with the huge bulk of this clash for like
exactly
sustained damage to actually become kind of relevant again.
Yeah.
And it's going to seem like I'm such a sourpuss. I keep bringing up negatives, but I mean, Shado brought it up, and I have to agree. As far as Clash, Wilk is okay, fine, sure, but I tried to use Wilk on a few trials. Like I took him to the War Mech and tried to do a clear, and Wilk is not a trial unit. Like he just really isn't, dude.
Oh, dude, it is so hard. Like I tried using a War Mech on him too. Like, holy crap!
Like he's single target. His LB. Not only does it stack 2 or 3 times, it's low modifier even after it stacks. He's only got a 1-use Grandis the entire fight for a small mod boost to bring it up to 400x, which is still significantly worse than Sylvie. He's got to do this alternating rotation of like mediocre damage compared to no damage in the base form to recharge, basically. Yeah, he's great in Clash. He is not a guy we're going to be see carrying in future trials, I don't feel like.
But he's still good for Dark Visions if you want to go all the way.
Yes, for Dark Visions, he's great.
Not being good in every mode.
Yeah, but Liv brings up Dark Visions. Dark Visions, he's great. He's great in Dark Visions because that's the whole thing with Wilk. He's got a really easy setup and unload, boom. Big burst, great. And if the content is over after that one burst, he is outstanding. The issue is if the content is not over after that turn, then it goes way downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if he's good in most EVs, most clashes, and not really trials, I think that's a fine place to be. I like seeing different units shine in different modes.
I guess. We are like
just used everywhere though.
Yeah, we're just like really spoiled by Esther. She is just overboard.
Yeah, I mean that's why
having a wife.
That's why it's a bit weird because like Esther even got buffs in the same week that Vilk was released. Like if Vilk was made with some sort of balance or some sort of like idea with let's try to keep the thing not too like let's try to keep the unit not too broken. But on the other hand, Esther just got a buff the same week. It just kind of feels like they're treating 2 units very differently. And they're both premium too, so just that.
There is the chance that, in 6 months, maybe Wilk will get his buffs like Esther did.
Quite
Oh
possibly.
gosh. Okay. Any other thoughts, Liv?
I like the anniversary. I mean, I generally agree with what Sinz or you guys in general said. There are a few very small mistakes made, but overall, especially compared to last year, I feel like this year is amazing.
Oh yeah, last year was
Yeah,
kind of bad.
There isn't really much to complain about from my side. I'm enjoying it. So I didn't expect anything, and I got very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up pretty well.
I kind of feel like maybe they put a lot of their effort into the Chamber of Vengeance thing, because that I assume probably took a lot of manpower, and maybe it was intended to release on Anniversary Day like a week ago, and maybe it got delayed, and that's why like maybe we're going to be super excited later in the month when it comes out. So that's what I'm hoping.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how like directly ported it is from the Clash boss version, or like how much they've tweaked the stats, because I assume it's going to need like a lot more HP.
Oh,
And
we have come so far in power creep from
Yeah.
1 year ago.
it'll be
What do you
interesting to see how
mean?
much they've tweaked it compared to its original form.
I want to one-shot Morgana again. Okay, how many times have Morgana been a key boss though? So it's like we'll be facing Morgana for the 5th time. I don't know. We'll see.
It's quite that bad, but because she had just like an event version of her boss and then a Clash version.
Yeah, and then there's the Vengeance version, and then the original event version.
If I actually had to rank the Chamber of Vengeance bosses, Morgana is by far my favorite. Like that is my
Me too.
favorite Chamber of Vengeance boss.
Well, in terms of design,
Yeah, because it's got the Morgana, it's got the 2 knights. They're very unique. They're each vulnerable to different things, but of course, hybrid handles them both. But yeah, and they had all kind of phases. Then at 50%, she summons the dragons. Like it was just a really well designed fight, very well designed. The Chamber of Vengeance Morgana.
I don't remember at all.
Kind of blocked those things out because of the trauma of 50 unit clears. Not looking forward to going back to that particular aspect of Chamber, to be honest.
I really hope they don't do that for these morale fights.
okay, but if they do the 50 unit clears, I do hope that the rewards are really worth it. Like what if they copy paste the rewards from like 3 years ago when Chamber of Vengeance first came out? Like that would be the most absurd thing. So
I really hope they
That's what-
do Xenostone shards, or I don't know what else is good. A crown, mystery crystals. That'd be cool rewards, but I don't think we're
Yeah, that'd
getting
be
it.
nice.
What would make me happy is a more modern armor set, like the Kyubi set, the
Oh, yeah,
Imperial
that'd
be
set, the Catastrophe set. Those were great. I loved those back in the 7-star era. So like a Neovisions version of the set pieces would be super cool.
yeah, that would be amazing.
Or like probably not for this month's one at least. But I think one thing that could actually potentially be cool, I don't think they'll do it for future ones, would be to put intrinsic abilities materia in the rewards.
Oh,
Yeah,
That is
that's
opening
good.
up a can. I would love that, but that is going to cause people. That is the whole reason that Latents got basically canceled in JP is because players threw a fit. Players threw a fit.
But yeah,
You are locking my unit behind a boss I can't beat, and they burned the house down and they took them away.
I remember when GL tried to fix it, and then GL threw a fit.
some bad takes. Name
Yeah.
a more iconic duo.
But I
Yeah.
do agree. I personally like that. I think that'd be a great reward. I just know that that is not a popular opinion.
They should get crowns. We should at least just get crowns from it or something. Something that's hefty for those 50 out of 50 unit clears is what I think is deserved. Crowns or the mystery crystals, whatever.
On the other hand, if the rewards suck, don't have to feel bad about not doing them.
Yeah, but I want to do it, so. I still haven't done the toying around one. I need to do that.
I did a bunch of them quite recently, actually, when I had to scrounge Lapis to get enough to finish Kaito's Pity.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of lapis in there.
Yeah, it was like 1,000 per fight or something.
Well, I think we're scratching. Oh, one more thing. Monday, there is a Neovision Shard step up, and
Oh.
if it's actually really good value, as in 5,000 for 50 shards.
Crazy upgrade compared to the previous ones.
Yeah. So if you need any shards for non-premium units before Kaito, this is probably the banner to pull on. So Kaito and Roberta both have 50 shards. I think 50 shards max per unit, probably. I can't imagine them giving 100 or 200. So
And
pull on
now,
that if you need it.
and now I feel super bad for already chasing their EX3s.
I'm
It's okay.
finishing off both their EX3s this shard dungeon. So
Yeah. I think for a final bit, since we have Liv on the pod, I'm gonna ask him a few questions just because you're
Sure.
first time on. How did you start FFB? Like, what the hell brought you into this drug?
Honestly, I was looking at, or I was originally playing Fantasy Wars Tactics, I believe is the name, and the game just got stale for me, and I was looking for a game that could potentially replace it. And I was always a Final Fantasy fan, and a friend of mine suggested to me that I should try this out. I gave it a whirl. I got Lightning and Ash, and I was feeling like a king for the first few weeks in the game, and I was like, yeah, it feels good, and that's how it started.
Which lightning and which
what you're
ash?
saying is Ash broke the game?
Yes, that was about 4 years ago. So that OG Lightning
Oh,
and
dang.
that first Ash.
When they were free.
Yes, exactly when they were free. I think I literally started the week after Flammy Banner. Not quite sure though.
That Flammy Banner was great.
You missed your Soaring Legendary Dragoon.
I did.
Or Dragon.
Don't worry,
What's
so
your
did I.
favorite Final Fantasy? And why is it not whatever Barrows likes? It's 8. Yeah, why is it not 8?
I didn't particularly hate 8, honestly. It's just a good game in general. It's not as good as Final Fantasy 7 or 6. It really depends on my mood whether I say Final Fantasy 6 is my favorite game or Final Fantasy 7 is my favorite game, because both are pretty much on equal footing for me. And it's basically 7 has the amazing characters, which I really love, especially Aerith. She's one of my favorite characters. And 6 has that absolutely crazy storyline where you could actually argue that Kefka won at the end.
That's a spoiler. What the heck?
Sorry.
Gosh. Spoiling these modern new release games.
Yeah, man. Millennials. Final question. You have a spreadsheet that a lot of people love to refer to. What is the difference between that, Sinzars, and wikis? Because I get that question. Okay. Background, I've been lurking around help the last week, and it's been crazy. Anniversary has brought in quite a lot of new players, which is great. But people need to know the difference between the 3 sheets, and I have all 3 of you on right now.
Ah, okay. So
yeah, I love how it's still Wiki Sheet and not Dreams Sheet, even though I've been the only one doing it for like 2 years now.
Okay, so I also talked about this very specific topic with Sinzar on my. It was work review, right, Sinzar?
Yes, we joined together on your channel for the woke review, and we talked about the spreadsheet. Yep, go for it.
All right, so let me start with the main differences between my sheet and Sinzar sheet, because I know that from heart. So I model my spreadsheet by most applicable to real world usage. What that means is I have rather realistic weapon imperils, what's rather usual in fights. I model for 80k defense and spirit alike. I should probably up this to 200k with the current clash, but that's fine. And I always gear the units against their unfavored races, and that's the huge difference to Sinzar's sheet, who has their favorite races. So, for example, Kain would be vetted against a dragon boss. On my sheet, that Kane, well, too bad. You're not fighting a dragon. You are fighting an aquatic boss, which he's innately not good at. So I always look for races that the unit has 0% killers towards, and I always try to make it so hard that they cannot cap the stats by themselves with an Esper. So most of the time, the units end up at 250 to 75-ish, but since it's dual race, there's a second race, which you cannot cap at all anymore, unless you're using 100% materials. So that's the main difference between the sheet. Now, Sinzar doesn't have killers, for example. He just EP, or you do have killers, but it's the best one, meaning you can EP it up. And yeah, those are the main differences, right, Sinzar?
Pretty much, yeah. My sheet, like it's still modeled against real world scenarios, but like you said, it's best case scenario. So it kind of like measures max possible potential. It doesn't go super overboard. Like for example, I don't give like Knights of Grandchild the Berserk buff from Zargabath. Like I don't go that extreme.
Same for me, by the way.
Yeah, but like as far as like reasonable but still best case scenario, that's kind of the way I do mine.
So none of you do 2 times cow with 500 flat attack or the 300 flat attack cow gear?
No.
Personally, do not use Ruler's Gear. Ruler's Gear is absolutely best in slot for many units. I just don't, because I feel like on the whole, for most players, it's more beneficial to have 3 pieces of Magisters spread out among your team. Now that, of course, depends on the unit you're using or not. But just in general, I think it's overall a little better. But if you're focusing your damage gear, then Ruler's Gear can definitely be a boost on like a smaller amount of DPS and a more support-heavy team.
Yeah, same for me. I always gear just 1 piece of the Magistus gear for chain cap, and that's it. Technically, yes, it would be better to, for example, give Esther all 3 pieces, 2 of which would be Ruler's gear, but that's kind of restrictive because in a proper team composition, Esther is not going to have all 3 pieces. Even though it might be cool, but she's never going to have that luxury. So that's what I'm also going for. I always have a certain team in mind. Sometimes I mention that certain team on my videos. Most of the time I forget about it, but I have it on my mind. And yeah, I mean, what it really comes down to, dual race, super unfavored, Dark Vision / Clash of Wills former stats with 100% defense and spirit, just so the numbers, I don't really like inflating numbers, so I always try to keep them on the low. I also have streamlined 130 imperils. I know some units have a lot higher these days, and at some point I will streamline this to 140%, for example. But that's just too much to handle, and it's also kind of not indicative of what may be the most comparable unit. So I'm trying to have the best of both worlds with as realistic as possible, but also as comparable as possible. And it's hard. It's
awesome.
The models are so different, and none of our sheets, neither mine, neither Sinzar's, neither yours, will ever be really good enough to encompass the actual real world usage on a broad scale. That's just impossible. But I feel like it's
you can't make a universal sheet.
Yeah, it's basically, and I feel like having 3 different sheets doing different things, Sinzar's, yours, and mine, it's the best case scenario for players because you have every player has a very different kind of play style, and if they find the wiki sheet team's sheet the most applicable to them, that's awesome because they found something that helps them. If they find mine the most helpful, cool. If they find Sinzar's the most helpful, awesome. So I feel like more variety, diversity in sheets with different modelings is actually very, very helpful for the players.
And one thing I want to interject before Dream gets to plug that sheet. I just want to say, also for players that are looking for a damage spreadsheet, I know for mine you can very easily make a local copy, and you can edit the assumptions yourself. And I'm pretty sure the same thing for Liv's and Dream sheets. So if you for example don't like let's say Liv built his for Aqua Dragon, but you want to see how your Angela compares to like a fairy human or something. then what you should do is you should make a local copy and just make the changes. Same thing for mine. Like if you want to add killers to mine, like the column is there. It's a very, very easy edit. And the wiki sheet, I believe, the same thing.
Yeah, and I just want to help Dream because she hasn't been taking any credit for the work she's been doing for like the past 5 years by this point. So Dream, plug your sheet and you can talk about it.
Yeah, just to contrast these two, where because both of your sheets are quite focused on very established players doing in-game content, whereas the wiki one is a lot more kind of casual focused. It's still like looking at completing those content, but it focuses a lot more on what damage dealers can provide for themselves and kind of do under their own power, and maybe with slightly less gear. Like other STMRs are sort of not really in play, but it does, like, cause we know that's a bit of a low ball. That's kind of compensated by rulers gear and stuff is in, and killers aren't really worried about. So as much as the builds on there aren't necessarily exactly what we expect people to use, that's kind of a compensation in the other direction for not using those STMRs that some people will have and premium cards and whatnot. But in general, it's more of like a casual lower ball, like for earlier starting players who might not have all of the best synergies, but it'll tell them, which units are best, providing mostly for themselves rather than with a full team to support them.
And this is why I think when it comes to help chat or like new players, I usually direct them to Dream's sheet because the assumptions there are more reasonable for newer players. I mean, for us, for like established veterans or mega whales like Trap, we always got to look at Sinzar or a live sheet to make the best assumptions.
Yeah, without a doubt. My sheet uses like just about every single physical DPS is using Cog's card. Almost every mage is using Dark Rain's card, etc. Like it is definitely showing the top end of builds.
Yeah, same for me. So again, I can only stress this. I always, whenever I have new players asking me for help with sheets, with builds, I usually direct them towards the wiki sheet because I know you guys did it right for this specific type of player.
It's so frustrating when you have someone come in like completely just ignoring all of like the assumptions and parameters, and it's like, how come this unit is better on this sheet but worse on this sheet? And it's like, oh my god, please just read.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Reading is hard.
There's definitely always problems with sheet. Like for example, I'll just call it out myself. On my sheet, on the Clash tab, people constantly say, "Why is Olivera so extreme?" Well, if you're fighting a pure fairy, or like I think it's a fairy demon in Clash of Wills, and Ibarra is using all the best gear, that's a legitimate calculation. She's going to blow everyone away if Dark works. But that has never come up as of yet. So it's like theoretical best, not always realistic best.
One day, copium.
Well, that's I think all we have for this week. Unless you guys have any.
I think we've rambled long enough.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is a very content-heavy episode.
I mean, we made a super kind of dead week into an interesting podcast, I think.
I had a lot of fun.
Great. No, I thought being on here and me having the holy trinity of sheet managers was a good time to have the sheet discussion. So
Is this the power of not having Barris here?
Oof. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.